Hello, one and all. This is Various Fields, and I'm Lex.
I'm Hazen Fields II.
And I'm Hayes Fields III. How y'all doing today, interwebs?
Cool. I wanted to get into a quick topic because I think I mentioned on this show before, but I work in news, used to work in news, and now I work a little more in the political spots of news, a little bit like that. But something I've noticed and something that scares me, like in a light way, or something I'm noticing that's becoming more of a popular trend, is that people no longer have, or what is called, or people are lacking what is called media literacy. You guys know what I mean by that?
Well, give us
a
little bit
definition.
more.
So this wasn't pre-prompted at all, audience. Looking at the Google definition of media literacy, it says the ability to critically analyze stories presented in the mass media and to determine their accuracy or credibility.
So fact-checking.
Fact-checking, yes. Fact-checking in the broad sense.
Wow.
I think media literacy does tend to surface or kind of center around news, or where you're getting your news and information from. But the reason why I'm using news specifically as my baseline of things is when you're a journalist, your job is to make sure not to just cite your sources, but make sure you look at both sides to be as quote unquote objective as possible.
Right.
And the reason why that's harder now is because of all the algorithm stuff. So now it's even if you want to be objective, I'm not blaming people for not having it. I just realized it's actually harder to do now. Before, I felt like things were a little less contentious, but now you have TikTok, you have YouTube, your algorithm is so sent to you that even if you're thinking you're kind of looking at both sides, you might not be. So it's kind of intentionally look at arguments against your beliefs. Intentionally look at some people that you may not agree with, but just to understand where they're coming from. Because now there's so much information out there that you want to make sure, not just in terms of your own knowledge, but in terms of interacting with people, that you have good media literacy.
Right. And now that we have the advent of AI and AI imaging, right, there's a lot of people that are putting out fake images of events that have never really happened before.
Right.
And AI is in fact getting better. Even though it cannot master hands or numbers as well, there are some pictures out there that are saying oh wow, I can actually see this being maybe a still from 1999, right? And no one would bother to check it because it was already out on the interwebs.
Right.
So I understand.
Well, then how do we actually determine what is a reliable source?
That's actually fun. So I think there are a couple ways to do it. There's the basic, just do your research. I would say it's not as hard as people may believe. So it's really just sometimes do a follow-up. I should have looked this up before. I know there are actually apps for this, or certain apps and things for this, where you can either put on your phone and put a website and click on a link, and that app will automatically reference a link. But something you can actually do is you can also just, really enough, use AI for this. People can use ChatGPT and other things to hey, this is the source, this is the headline I just read, or this is the thing that was on YouTube I just read. And you can actually ask ChatGPT for what are multiple sources? Where are they getting their stuff from? And it'll confirm certain things. You can also Google it yourself, just hey, I heard, this, I got this from CNN, I got this from Fox, but where did they get their sources from? Anything that's CNN or NBC or major news networks always have somewhere at the bottom of the articles who they talk to, stuff like that. But I would also say the easiest way to do it, because I'm not always talking about straight up fact checking, because unless you're a journalist, that can be a little overwhelming if you're really just scrolling on TikTok. Every video you see, you don't have to check. But it's more making sure that your algorithm or the things that your space that you're in is very diverse. So it has a diverse amount of information. Does that make sense?
Yes, it did. But I want you to go back to something, because some of the people that are watching are from my generation, and you said something kind of quickly. ChatGPT.
Fair.
GPT. And I want you to explain.
Acronym thing again.
Acronyms. Yeah. But what is it?
Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair. So ChatGPT, this is not a paid ad, is a AI, I guess, writing prompt. What would you call it? AI writing
app resource.
Service. It is what? Oh my gosh! I used to know. You might know it. Do you know the people who made it? Because it's called something. ChatGPT is under a parent company.
Unfortunately, I do not know.
Okay, but I guess the best way to say it is it's one of the more popular and one of the more, I guess, universally accessible AIs. And since people started talking about AI, this is the one that kind of
started everything.
This is one that it could write essays on its own. It could do a whole bunch of stuff.
This one was launched to the general public
Right.
that
Yes.
that just normal users can to access.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it learned from there and eventually became updated like several times. And now I think we're on like the fourth version of it and like 4 point something other.
Right.
Right. And now it's paid, but like nevertheless, like the earlier access version, you can still utilize for free.
Yeah.
Well, I just said that because I became familiar with some AI utilities because I think you guys. I'll probably put it up on our site.
Okay.
But years ago, we teased this before. I did an audio called the penmanship,
Right.
which was to actually help Lexington write in script, and it turns out that writing in script is not all that important.
All it did was make me become a pirate.
Well, just to give you a little bit of that, the audio is about 10 minutes long, and it includes a lot of dialogue. I do all these voices, and there's a song at the end. But I've always dreamed of it having pictures or being in an animated form.
Right.
But I actually investigated with some friends and people, and it obviously would cost too much money. 20 years later to now, just about 3 weeks ago, I was able to speak to an AI device that allowed my words to create pictures.
Right.
And immediately, that which I spoke, would be produced on my phone. And I created the images.
Yeah.
That would have cost me so much money. Now, it's like, now, to all of our artist friends, this is in no way saying that we replace your genius.
Of course.
But for those who cannot afford or just want to get it out, the AI images became very, very important. So AI has its uses, and we'll put it up on our site.
It's still very much on brand because it's still talking about media and literacy.
I was going to say this actually. Right after what I was saying, because the fun fact, the scary. This is a weird space because I know a lot of people, artists. Some people are weird about AI because they're like, hey, where does it get information from and things like that. And that's what I'm talking about with media literacy. Something that's interesting with, I know how a lot of AI works. This is called, I think it's called like the black box theory, essentially. The way AI works is that it pulls all information from the internet, and they know how AI works, they know how they program, and knows all this. But when AI does what it does, people who even programmed it doesn't know what it's grabbing from.
That's crazy.
Right? So it's called the black boxes. And like, we know it's doing it. We actually just don't know how it's doing what it's doing, even
That's
though we made
crazy.
it.
Yeah.
But that's really enough. That's media literacy in terms of like, some artists know to recognize like, hey, I don't know this, but I've noticed that stroke is actually from this specific artist. Like that's kind of their penmanship kind of thing. And that's kind of the same way I'm talking about media literacy in terms of information or news. It's like you can tell when certain sources are coming from. And in fact, another last reason why I'm also bringing this up, we talked about this briefly last night, but a lot of times if you're arguing with someone online and it gets a little heated and they say something that's like, I know for a fact that this stat and this fact, and it sounds a little off to you, before you respond back, just make sure you check it, you Google it, like, all right, where are you getting your sources from? So this way you're not arguing against something that's not true.
Right.
But that can happen so fast. TikTok and misinformation spreads so fast.
Right.
So this is less of a, hey, do your research, get down to it. It's just media literacy now, I believe, is a skill, and just make sure you're doing your due diligence to where your sources are coming from, and how to keep yourself well informed, and that you're also not putting yourself in a bubble of information. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
No, it
it
makes
does.
perfect sense.
Well, actually, one of the things that you also have to be
The
careful
more you know.
of.
Sorry.
Actually, no. One of the things we have to also recognize that going back to social media and everything that's accessible to us, you can find what you want.
Yes.
Meaning that if you have a leaning, or if you have if you don't desire to see both sides of an issue, you indeed can go down a rabbit hole on one side. So if you want to be fair, you want to make sure that you look at both sides of the issue. But if you want to just supplement your predisposition on any subject, you can do that as well. So you have to be careful with that because, as you were talking about, good literacy. I don't know if that's a term that's properly used. Good literacy suggests that you look on both sides. And when you begin, sometimes I find because I'm on the the TikTok stuff, and for a lot of reasons. And I'm hoping to go live soon. But the thing is, a discourse. When you get information, sometimes when we get information, we use it as a sword. And it's like, aha, now I'm going to stab you and say and use vitriol and rancor and condescending terms and shake your fist. I think we have to, my thing is to have civility in our conversations.
Absolutely.
Now, we have to be able to have a dialogue, a discourse, which is where you can hear both sides. And we've talked about this before. This is one of the things, because one of our mainstays is that we say, we don't know nothing, but in our not knowing a great deal about any particular subject, we do know how to disseminate the information in a way that is palatable for the most part for everybody that we have a conversation with, because we're not trying to create disparity. We're not trying to create a chasm between individuals. We're trying to hear and listen. If we unite, fantastic. But mainly, the Bible says, "In all that getting, get an understanding." And if we can get an understanding of one another, I think that's a step towards what's the line? Making this a more perfect union.
Absolutely.
And I think the whole objective of this podcast as well, calling it Various Fields, is also trying to not just in not us not knowing anything or anything like that, but I think we are also just trying to bridge that gap of misunderstanding and understanding, right? Not just from our perspective, from those that are watching right now, or those that are actually interested in what we were talking about. We also want to make sure that they understand what we may not have every answer, but you always have the ability to kind of seek it out yourself. I know we just came out of our political segment, and I always try my best, like you said, to hear both sides. So oftentimes I'm hearing a lot of Fox News, and I'm hearing a lot of CNN, MSNBC, right? And they all have conflicting arguments. But the one thing that got me, right, and I love this because I think Harris actually just went on an interview not too long ago, right? And the very news station tried to pull some information out on interview that Trump had on the very station that she was being interviewed on, right? So in the interview, to make Harris looked like she did not know what she was speaking about, they edited the information, right? So that way they could favor their backed candidate, right? In which case, if you see the full interview for yourselves, right, you can understand that it was only a segment that they pulled to make her look like she did not know what she was speaking for. In fact, it was not the case. So,
well, you know what? To that, I'm going to make a little shift and do two things. Number one, do the buttons things for guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please, if you like what we're talking about right now, like, share, subscribe, hit all the buttons, right? Just to add more to the conversation, help us educate and help educate us on the things that we do not know. I just want to make sure that people are also aware of the fact that you can always find that information yourself. I know we just came off the political thing, and I just said this before, right? But I've been also kind of encouraging people to read Project 2025 themselves, and I know that might be a really big document to go through, right? I actually went through and I tried to find some audio clips to be read through, right? And I know YouTube already has a couple of channels out there, at least one channel that I've seen that reads through the entire the entire document for you. So if you want to do your own research on that front, you can kind of pick it up either in text or in just this audio channel and just read it for yourself. So that way you're not being given the piecemeal information from another media source if you don't want to trust it.
Yeah. Well, I do want to make another point.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that we travel in the future or in the past.
Right.
So right now, this particular episode, we are still, when we're filming this, about 3 weeks away from the actual November 5th.
Yeah. Correct. But when you guys see this, it is most likely when Kamala Harris takes office.
So that being said, what I want to do, just in case, this is a little bit of improv. Gentlemen, let's us react because Kamala Harris has taken office.
Whoa.
All right. Congratulations. Thank you very much, Ray. We did it. Way to go. Okay, good job, guys. Okay. For the other side, let us react as though the opponent has taken the office. Oh, man.
Not to buy a gun now.
You know, listen.
Everything's on fire.
But look. We can still make it, America. Regardless of who's in office, we're going to go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But slowly and sadly.
Okay. on a count of three, a big sigh. 1, 2, 3.
Sigh.
Okay. All right. So we had to take care of both of those things there because right now we don't know who's actually in office. We only have our hopes. But going back to the media literacy, so this Chat GPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT was something else.
Is it BT or PT?
Chat BET.
BET.
Yeah. It's
GPT.
Yeah,
See, you're gonna get
ChatGPT.
people looking for it, and again, this is not a commercial. We're just
Well, the reason why I did this is because it's one of the, like, if you go to Google, a whole bunch of prompts will pop up. And it's something that I think people are pretty familiar now. Usually the first prompts that pop up when you Google something are going to be ads. So, like, you get, like, 1 or 2 ads if you look for a website first that, like, they're still relevant to what your topic is. But then if you're looking for something more specific, you might want to go down, like, to the third link, because then it's essentially not like a paid ad, but just trying to grab your attention and get you to do something. But ChatGPT, like, if you ask a question, it's kind of like Google. To be honest, at this point, I think it's better than Google. You can ask a question, it'll give you an answer, but also you can ask it where it's getting your sources from immediately, and also just through a straight up text, it will do that.
Well, mind you, Google does 2 different things than ChatGPT. Well, to be
a search engine.
Yeah, it's a search engine.
Yeah,
You're supposed to basically find the information yourself.
Exactly.
It just gives it to you, as opposed to ChatGPT. We'll have a full conversation with you, might spit back some of the words, right? But we'll have the full conversation with you, so you could kind of like form a better understanding of where your thoughts might be headed. It's almost like talking to yourself.
I mean, you can use it for a whole bunch of things.
Yes, of
I'm
course.
just saying, like, one of the first things that comes to mind, if you're not, like, if you Google, let's say you're on CNN and there's a headline or something that came up, right? And it's like, oh, this, I'm trying to think of a generic headline, taxes or, what's the thing? Inflation is up by this much %, right?
Right,
You can
not
Google
small
that.
tax, big tax, tic tax.
But that's good. You can Google that, and you can look for sources. You'll probably find something pretty quickly, but you still have to kind of find it a little, do a search and do a link. Where if you just ask ChatGPT, what's the most recent information, and where do you get your sources from, it'll also just give you sources.
this is amazing. It's amazing.
But another thing, something else, if you're looking for a search engine, because they are different things, is you can also go on Snopes. I believe it's a fact-checking website as well, so you can check that out.
Snopes, not Snoops.
I think it is
pretty
Snopes.
Snopes. No, that was
Snopes.
Snopes.
But listen, this is an amazing time because we have access to so much information. In fact, even in searching, I heard someone give information I thought might have been incorrect. So someone had said on one of the things I was on that they trust .gov and .org more than .com. Now, I'm saying .gov, .gov, .org, and .com.com. These are all extensions that when you're looking them up, when you're, somehow or another, the mythos is that the .gov and .org have more reliability. I say we have to be careful with that.
Yeah, that's one of those I feel like, actually, that's one of those monolithic statements where it's like you cover a whole basis. And I think that's another thing I'm talking about with media literacy, because there's a part where I'm saying media literacy is a big topic that we're talking about, but it's also more or less takes your enough amount of information with a grain of salt. So if anyone says, like, .gov for a fact, all .govs are just better informed, you're like, all right, maybe not all, but, like, it's just grain of salt. And I think it's just the reason why I'm kind of bringing up again from the news perspective is that you want to be able to look at things objectively or receive information objectively without criticizing it off the top of your head, without immediately being like, yes, this is exactly what I believe it to be. Take it with a grain of salt, but also to not be cynical, because I think that's a kind of a fine line there of like to not judge everything and be like, oh, now I get this information, it can't be true. But just to be like, all right, got this. I appreciate hearing the information. Let me do some. And if you already know it, you know it. But like,
But also, like we were saying, we have to be careful not to just put our own personal feelings into things because, I think it would be good if you look up, and it's hard because, you're passionate about a subject, look up the other side's, point of view. And that may be disgusting to do because, you're like, oh my gosh, I know that they're wrong. But at least try to do it so that you can have a balanced argument in your head so that you can see and,
or at least come to the understanding as to why they believe a certain thing.
Right.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
main
Because I don't want it to be such a disparity of like what you believe and say, oh, I'm absolutely right in my fact, as opposed to the other side. Because if there is no in between as to why they may have came to that conclusion, you're not going to fully get the full picture as to why they are why you are swayed in one direction or another.
Right.
So.
And actually jumping off of that, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because I think, again, also doing this from the lens of I've done interviews before and having to listen to people that I would directly disagree with. But I think the difference is there's a lot of this stuff is within the context of you being online, right? So, and there's a little more safety in being online where you can argue with someone online because you feel that kind of thing. But the difference, another thing that I think helps with what I'm using as a term media literacy, but also coming from that is what you're saying is to understand what the people the opposing beliefs, where they're coming from, is actually very important, because it also allows you to treat other people that you don't agree with a little more empathy. Because the whole idea is that most people don't believe they're bad people, and that most people aren't bad people in a very inherent way. They can be misguided, but also their beliefs come from an emotional point. And that emotion, usually, if it's just completely disregarded, that is the thing that's going to create tension. So if someone says something that, whether you know it to be true or not, but they say something that's untrue, and you immediately disagree. You're not just disagreeing with them, you're disagreeing with maybe a part of what they were told, which means they felt tricked, they feel wrong, so they're dumb, and they can't be dumb because they're not wrong. Or you're disagreeing with the emotion they got there, or you're disagreeing with their identity, and most people protect their identity.
Right.
So it's less of a, hey, I want to be media literate just because I want to be right. It's like if I understand where they're coming from, I can understand the fear that has been created in this other base, and this is what they're trying to protect. And I can now, instead of reacting to that fear, I can be like, this is what I know, but I understand where you're coming from, but this is another way to handle this, if that makes sense.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, one example in this, and this is, like, with every subject, there's always, like, a huge debate over it. There is I know for a fact that we were raised somewhere in the middle ground between, like, in an orthodox manner, as well as a little bit with a holistic backbone as well, while with Nana's raising, right? Whenever we
were raised Baptist.
No. No, in terms of medicine. All right. There were times whenever we got scrapes or bumps, as opposed to just getting like a bandage out of a thing, like you just get like a crack off, myrrh, crack out a leaf of aloe to rub off on that, right, and just let that heal naturally.
You got Jesus
right?
gifts.
Right. Right. But even like as benignly as some of those remedies were, they still helped and were very effective in our upbringing.
Indeed.
Right. But a lot of people are completely against the idea of holistic medicine. Right. And nowadays, I'm also seeing arguments about some doctors against the practices of this orthodox a way of thinking, when like you could just bring a pill to every situation and it'll be better, right? I think there is I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure. There's a Dr. Feelgood out there that's like currently brandishing a book about how you can eat better or something like that. But there's always different various diets to say like, well, you are what you eat. You know what I mean? And that in a sense becomes holistic in its own right. Like as opposed to taking some catchphrase medicinal that you hear on like your regular TV, right? You all like a Midinol or a Zunanex or whatever like that. Like you're actually getting like better nutrition, right? And thus it makes your body better from from constant use.
Yeah, that's like the whole. I mean, now you get into like what's the snake oil salesman kind of vibe,
right? Exactly.
Like, I'm not. This is not trying to completely take away from this gentleman's career, but also I'm pretty sure this was like what Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil fell into this role. I think I don't think Dr. Phil was not a therapist, like an actual psychologist, but like he had like a doctor or something else, but he just got a show. One of those kind of things. And it's not even, it's just more like, again, certain things with that broad terminology take over grain of salt. Like something I do know is Judge Steve Harvey is a judge now. He's not a judge. He doesn't have, I mean, he has a show and he's so it's just,
and this is not
strange, just look it up maybe.
Exactly. And also, as we're talking about all these things, we're now, those who are not doing it as much as we've been exploring, it will open you up to some bad people. So we're talking about cybersecurity. We have to kind of be careful because you may open yourself up to cyber attacks by clicking on, be very vigilant and careful of clicking on yes, because as you do a lot more of these searches into different things, they have things called cookies in your computer that will attract those who, those things you're searching will become more, easier for people to find that and seek you out. But I do have some a malware type of thing that is absolutely perfect, and I can tell you this for sure, that if you get this, you would never ever get any cyber attacks. It's called The Library.
Yep.
And books.
I saw this
You saw that? You saw that coming?
You saw it was coming. And then I felt, I was like, oh, this is a setup.
I was thinking, I was like,
did you make that face so people, like
I didn't mean at first I was in it, and then I caught the tone. I was like,
I see,
this is
right.
a build-up.
It's a build-up, yeah. They grew up with this all their lives. But yes, we speak so much about going out on the internet, we forget the tactile pleasure of reading an actual book with pages and researching history that way. That way you can get information as well. Please don't forget your public library. It's free.
Actually, you know what you just also reminded me of is what we should, because this is like I feel like out of a lot of the podcasts we've done, this is the most PSA kind of one we've done, where like we're just talking to the audience. So if we can, I'm gonna, when this episode comes out, we'll put a couple of links on the bottom, and we'll just make sure we give you some fact-checking websites. So it's like, not only are you fact-checking us, but because this to me is just, I'm not saying we have all the answers. That's not what this topic is about. It's just saying, hey, make sure you protect yourself. Make sure you do this. And at the very least, if you don't take anything away from this episode, you can go to our channel. You can go to this episode, look in the description, and we'll have a list of links where you can check a couple things, copy and paste that. Make sure you have it as an accessible tool.
Cool.
So the next time you're just about to question something, you're just curious, just make sure all your information, you have all your ducks in a row. You can go to our website, click the link, and then bam.
And once again, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and comment. I want to tell you, can we get the applause button?
Sure.
Please. We are up to 77 subscribers, and that includes you. Those who are subscribing. And listen, I don't want to make you jealous, but don't let your friends become subscribers before you do. If you're watching this for the first time, please get in there and subscribe, and let people know about various fields. And if you like how we have our conversations, and we got about 3 minutes left. Let's hear for Nels. Give me another hand for Nels.
Time check.
And Nels is letting us know that we've got 3 minutes. Why don't we close it up somewhere along the line? You want to start?
Yeah. Know the facts. Research. That's all I got right now.
It's really thrown off. That was funny.
I wasn't normally I throw it immediately to me. I was like, oh yeah,
I'm sorry.
Everything. Like I actually thought we were going to close off on that. And I was like, but other than that, yeah. Make sure you read and do your research first. Make sure you look on both sides, right? And please read for yourself, because it's a lot better for you to have an understanding from your own mind, from your own perspective, as opposed to like being swayed by an audience of like-minded peers, right? So do that.
I'm going to do it the opposite way. It's okay to be wrong, so don't double down on being wrong. Make sure that if you're wrong, you accept it, you put it out there, you admit to it, all that kind of stuff. But also, learning is more important than trying to win an argument or anything like that. So wherever the case is, look things up, not for yourself, but also look things up for other people. Make sure that you don't become a source of misinformation.
And also, lastly, when you're on a debate out there with people you don't know, it's only a moment. There's no reason for you to get upset. Just take a deep breath and realize that the people on the other side of the screen are just like you. So let's be fair in how we talk to one another.
No one's going to eat your pet for being wrong.
Indeed. Right. All right. This has been Various Fields. We're going to see you next week. Thank you for going. Guys, I love you. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much.
Now.
Come on back. All right. See you later.